Hi, everyone. Okay, welcome to this 10th webinar from Escape. So we are going to look at some successful compositing showreels from Escape students today. And they are successful because they got those students jobs in top visual effects companies in London. And that's what showreels really are for, to demonstrate skills and to get a job. As you probably know, Escape runs the original and the founding 12-week short courses on various subjects that take you from zero to hero. And we also have 20-week evening courses for those with commitments during a day. These are very popular with people already working in the industry wishing to widen their skills as well. And we have undergraduate and master's courses too. So the software we use mainly is Nuke and Silhouette. And today we'll have a look at the various showreels, 5 I hope, that students completing these different visual effects compositing courses have created. Now I'm going to start, the first showreel is going to be an older showreel, but I find it really relevant today as well. And then the other 4 showreels are very recent showreels of the students. 3 of the students who got a job straight away after they completed these reels. And the very last one will be a showreel that was completed a week ago from one of our undergraduate students. So very, very different work you will see today. So we'll start with Tim Adams' showreel. He's a rotoprep artist. After this showreel, he got a job at DNEG and then ILM. He's now a compositor at ILM. Let's have a look. What I'll do is show the showreel and then go through it and explain what is good about it and the skills. I'll switch off the sound and we can go back from the top. Of course, later on, if you want to ask any questions, I'll answer the questions later. We'll go from the top. This is the slate, as you can see. It's very clean, and that is really what is required. The reason I show this showreel always to my students is because it demonstrates skill, focus, and determination. People looking at showreels want to look at the characteristics as well of the person that has created this showreel. So showing the core skills is very, very important. So as I said, this is the right slate because it has the name, The job role, which is rotor prep artist, that's what he's focused on. This student wanted to get a job, and that is the entry role to the industry. Then you want to say the software used. Here we have Nuke and Silhouette and the contact details. Then we have the first shot. What we used to do is, and you will still see that in the showreels, some of the showreels these days as well, is that people would show completed shots to start with, and then do the breakdowns at the very end. That's fine. However, it doesn't make sense for the showreels like this, where you're actually demonstrating different skills with different shots. Having a sequence of shots and then the breakdowns makes sense, you know, if you are working on the actual sequence of shots, you know, out of the short film or something like that. So the focus on this rail is rotor prep. And contrary to what people think, and even though a lot of rotor is sent abroad, we still always need to cut out something or someone from the plate. So we always need to remove something from a live action plate as well. So even as a senior compositor, you will be required to do that. Or even, you know, sometimes you will need to supervise other people doing it. So you do need to be proficient at this stage in time. You know, at this point in time, you have to be proficient in rotor. So when you're looking at these wipes here, and this is the correct way to do the wipes. Okay, he has a line, of maybe you would do a wipe without the line. It doesn't matter. What you are actually showing here, or what he's showing here, is that, that there is a perfect transition between these wipes, i.e. no other pixels than necessary have been changed in this plate, because basically the client wants his original shot back, and only the things that need to be replaced are replaced. Everything else has to stay in place. So of course, it takes a lot of practice to do something like this, but that is really what you want to achieve. So nothing is shifting. When you are doing the wipes, nothing must shift. You must not lose any of the information from the original place. The ability to do such an accurate cleanup is very, very important. So then we have a second shot that is a rotor shot, very good type of rotor shot that the student has filmed himself. And that's great. You have a person running down into the tube, carrying a rucksack. So this is showing two skills. The ability to create organic and inorganic rotor. Organic rotor is cutting out a person or an animal, and inorganic is cutting an object. So they use different techniques. So that's what you would want to demonstrate. Ideally, you can do it in the same shot or in the separate shots. We usually recommend the type of shots to be, you know, something like this. It could be a skateboarder. So you have a skateboard, which is inorganic, and a skateboarder, which is a person, organic. Or you could have a boxer punching a bag, somebody pushing a cartwheel or something like this. Because you are using different techniques, it's really good to do that. Of course, sometimes it's not possible, so you have two separate shots, and that's fine. Another thing that is really important is to show the accuracy of the rotor. And the reason we are displaying the rotor with the overlay that you've seen here, using a blue overlay, fine. Most of the time we use red, but maybe part of the clothing was red and it was better to use blue. You can see he's entering the tube, so tube has a red door, so you use a blue overlay. Then we display it on gray, because any discrepancy in the rotor will be obvious when it's on gray. He has already used the edge extend, meaning that, as you can see, even in motion blur areas, you don't see any of the background. which means that RGB was extended. And that is usually something people do in compositing stage. So as a roto artist, you are not expected to do that unless you are asked. So it's okay on the rails where you have the motion blur to see some of the original background through these semi-transparent edges, which in this case we are not seeing because he's done the edge extent, fine. He didn't need to do it. And then you want to show your roto as black and white as well, which will show what we always want to avoid, any sort of boiling on the edges. So this is very well executed roto, so we are not seeing any of that boiling. Another shot, as I said, he's concentrating on roto and cleanup. I know everybody is always, looking forward to creating some exciting comps with a lot of explosions, things flying around, big action shots. That's fine. But remember, you have to take it step by step. So he did the right thing to concentrate on roto and cleanup. And then to demonstrate a good cleanup, what is the most common task? One of the most common tasks is removing the tracking markers in the industry. There is a lot of, the tracking markers are there to be able to replace something or put something on his face here. And of course, if you are placing in just some small detail, then and you are not placing it over the tracking markers, you would have to remove them. So removing tracking markers, here it's done perfectly. You will see in a second when he's wiping. As you can see, he's wiping. Different stage because actually the person in the background that we haven't looked at has been removed as well. We'll come to that in a second. But the tracking markers, removing them from the skin is actually requires a little bit of skill because skin is very smooth and detailed. So it's very easy to end up with some sort of patches that don't fit in properly. But he's done a very, very good job here. So only the bits where the tracking markers have been replaced and the rest of the face is untouched. And that's really what you want to achieve. And he's demonstrating a particular skill. And then the tracking markers were used just to place this sort of logo on the glasses. That's fine because he's not here demonstrating some sort of amazing comping because he's focusing on perfecting his skills, because that's another thing. When you get a job, you want to be confident and not scared when you are given a task, right? So that's why it's okay to spend time perfecting just a couple of skills. And here he is removing the person behind as well. That, by the way, was filmed in the Shepherd's Bush premises of Escape Studios. We are now in Holborn, but this was the corridor in Shepherd's Bush. So anybody who has been there feeling nostalgic, nice memories. So the person at the back was removed as well. As you can see, everything is done seamlessly there as well. So the replacement of the door, the floor, or removal of some reflections and so on has been done probably 2.5D projection in Nuke using Camera Track. So a very good job. The next shot is another rotor. These days, it's relatively unusual to have more than one rotor on a reel. I mean, our students tend to have one rotor shot because obviously rotor is very, very time consuming when you want to do it really well, but it's always in demand. So here, the purpose was here to practice, separating probably the hair well and accurately from the background as well. And it's a different type of shot, as you can see. A little bit of action, some motion blur there. And again, we are not seeing the original background through the motion blur, which means he's done this edge extend, which is great. Obviously wanted to spend extra time practicing the rotor so that when he lands a job, he feels confident doing it. And back to the first shot, as you can see, for the cleanup, obviously all the other people have been removed from the plate. So the main runner had to be placed back in. You can see this is a fairly long shot, so a lot of work. So even today, if I was a recruiter looking at this reel, you know, I would think, oh, hey, I would think this artist, you know, has a great attitude. He's hardworking, patient, persistent, with great attention to detail, and very keen and to improve and perfect the skills. So that's something to remember, that your showreel is saying something about you as well. Okay, I'm going to move to the next showreel. If you have any questions at all, please write them down and we'll answer them later. So I'm going to close this and go to Jorge Vismanos. He's a more recent student. This is a showreel from 2018. I think I copied this showreel, you know, maybe this is the first version, so the slate wasn't completely finished. Otherwise, he would have his role and, you know, the software he used and so on, because he was a very meticulous student who got a job at ILM and is still there as a paint roto artist. In fact, he has just released the paint showreel on Vimeo. So take a note of his name and have a look at that paint showreel of his work at ILM. This showreel is not on Vimeo anymore, but it's really nicely done. So I'm just gonna actually play it with music first and then we'll run through it. Just a sec.
Al fin me acepta Hogwarts. ¡Autos magos de mierda!
Great. I really like this showreel because it has a nice quirky ending as well. Okay, so this showreel was created after a 12-week compositing course. Of course, Jorge did know a little bit about Nuke before that, and then he went on to do the masters as well. And he was very hardworking student as well. So. As I said, the slate is probably a temporary slate. I want to go to the first shot. This is a great choice of shot, and it reflects what frequently happens in the industry as well. The action has been shot on green screen, but the director may like the bit of the action that is happening off green screen, you know, for a storytelling purpose or for the cut and so on. So. You know, even though it's shot on green screen, we end up having to rotate. And it may be decided because part of the shot is on green screen. It may be decided that because part is off and part is on, depending on the workflow in a facility. That it will all be rotated, so that there is no risk of some sort of scene moving between the key and the rotor. So It's a good choice of shot as well, because again, we have organic and inorganic. We have the soldier and the machine gun. Machine gun is an inorganic example of rotor. So again, you know, with inorganic rotor, of course, you can use the tracking to speed up your rotor. And here, even on the soldier, for the certain areas, one could use the tracker. But usually for the organic, you know, you are not in a position, if the action is fast, you are not in a position to use the trackers with rotor. So having an inorganic object is nice, because you can demonstrate that, you know, you can practice that. That's what it's all about. It is about developing as a compositing artist. So let's have a look at his wipes here. He's wiping, this is a very clever way of showing how good he has, you know, retained all the detail from the motion blur. And that's really what you want to demonstrate, that you are able to retain this sort of detail. And he zoomed in to make that clear, which is great. Again, showing it as we've seen, black and white, and then on gray. And that's the right way to show your rotor work. He's not showing you the overlay, fine, no problem. But you know, I would, because it makes it very clear how good your rotor is, and his rotor is excellent. So the next shot is an example of cleanup. 2.5D cleanup. He reprojected, recreated the background, so removed the phone box and, you know, recreated the background. Maybe he had part of the background as a clean plate. Nevertheless, it's very well done when you wipe between things. Nothing is offsetting. And that's the point, that you are able to retain the whole plate as it was originally, and only affect the area that needs to be affected. That's the point of this. So, you know, here you would be displaying your paint skills, tracking, the 2.5D projections, you know, camera track, and being able to do all that very accurately. So a next shot is also great. Paint, you know, great cleanup. We are removing the red car here. So the background, the clean background has to be obviously recreated from the different patches. And there are quite a lot of people and other cars that have to be placed back on top. That's how we work. When we need to remove something, we will remove the larger area and then place the original bits that we want back on top. So this sort of thing, obviously, we teach on our courses. And then whenever one sees a lot of rotor like this, it's very impressive when you have more than one person. Of course, they're not moving very much, still plenty of work here. So very nice job. And then the next one is a keying example. And even though the green screen here looks pretty clean and even, this is a good example of a good key, and that retains all the detail like hair. You can see that through the wipe. And of course, those that have experience in keying, you know that you can only achieve this using multiple keyers and additive keyer, which is not a keyer in itself, but helps us to get this sort of fine detail back in. So again, something we would teach on our courses here. Okay, so he's also showing some compositing and integration through grading, controlling the focus on the background and so on, combining different plates, two different plates together, which is really what compositing is all about, is taking different elements, maybe created or filmed under different conditions, different lighting conditions, and be able to you know, integrate them together so that you end up with a photorealistic result. So he's showing a little bit of compositing here through grading and integration through grading, atmospherics, and defocus. And then the very last shot is about CG comp, although he hasn't done the breakdowns here, so that's fine. He was going for rotopaint, rotoprep role, so maybe, you know, he's interested in just showing this nice little highlight. Fine. What is particularly nice about this reel, I think, obviously, it's very skillful reel. Everything he's done well. But he has this quirky element at the end. And it's a personal touch. And I really like that. It shows a bit of playfulness and personality. That's him. And these things are very welcomed in the industry. All in all, this is a very nice show reel demonstrating various core skills executed really well. And as I said, you should check out his paint show reel on Vimeo. Very, very good work. Okay, so the next one is very different one. I now have to go on Vimeo because I don't actually have the copies of these reels. This is one of my ex-students, Eva Ciocchetti. Excellent, you will see. Let me show you the reel. Okay, sorry, this was a little bit loud, probably. Okay, I'll go back from the beginning. Right, so as you've seen, this really is quite different. It has a commercial feel to it. Don't forget, you know, the work is not just in film, the work is also in commercials and television programs, documentaries, any, you know, any work or promotions going on to social media as well. I really like it. It's different. No soldiers, alpha males running around. It's really cool. It comes across quite art-directed through the choice of shots, which all fall into the similar atmospheric or filmic look. So let's start with the slate. You can see straight away that there is some background in graphic design. Not that as a compositor you need it, but you know, Eva comes from a graphic design background, so she took, you know, she took some time creating this slate. It's well designed and clear. The only thing that's missing is a job role, which is a shame, because really it should say Rotoprep Junior Compositor. But it's quite common for students to forget to give themselves a title. I think it takes a while to realize that that's who you are. You're not a student anymore. Now you are a Rotoprep artist or compositor. So, but what is nice here is she has Escape Studios logo in the middle between the software that she's used. And it's immediately clear she studied at Escape, which is just which is quite beneficial because, of course, we have a very close link to the industry. So It's very nice for a recruiter to see that because we do, you know, make an effort for our students. We want our students to get good jobs, and that's what we focus on, giving them the skills that the industry needs. So let's go from the top. The first shot is a ballet dancer showing cleanup and rotor skills, tracking skills as well, in removing this cameraman. That happens very often, of course, when you have shots like this. You have a cameraman in a mirror, which you don't really want, so he has to be removed. Cleanup is very, very common, and even senior compositors do a lot of cleanup retouching on commercials. In films, there is you know, a lead of some sort is left on the floor, has to be removed. Signs that don't belong to the particular film era have to be removed, and so on. People walk on the sets, things like this happen. So cleanup skills are very important at whatever stage you are. So it's definitely worth practicing. So a reflection cleanup is often more complex as well, as there is a different movement of the reflection than general camera track. So this is also from a real job. We always try to bring in real jobs for our students so they can gain experience from working with clients and also get their first credit. So it's a really nice execution here. The rotor, of course, some of the rotor, because she had to be overlaid on top. And obviously a finished shot approved and used in the project, you know, which a client has approved it. So the next shot, a rotor. Right, this is a very, very difficult rotor. Anybody seeing this would know that this takes a long, long time. And if you have a patience, not just patience, you know, you have to create it very, very accurately. You can see there are many, many shapes here. That's how we break up our rotor at Escape, and you know, any serious compositing school would do that. Breaking the rotor in this case quite anatomically, looking at the joints and you know, the movement of different elements of the body, and then the ribbons, of course, which are completely uncontrollable, and each shape lasts only one frame effectively because there is so much movement there. So again, if you are looking as, you know, from a recruiter point of view, if you're looking at this, you would think, right, what sort of person is this? Somebody patient, very patient, hardworking. And everybody wants people who are patient, meticulous, and hardworking. So in her case, when she's displaying it on gray, you can see she didn't do edge extent, and that's no problem. We can see the edge. You see these edges from the original plate. That's fine because there is some motion blur there, so they're semi-transparent pixels, and that's normal. We don't shrink the mat to get rid of them. What we do is we extend the good pixels out. So that's a technique, obviously, we teach on the courses, how to do that. So excellent, excellent work. The next one, of course, she's working as a rotor paint artist now at Framestore, but after finishing her 12-week course and completing this showreel, she got a job. She got a place on ILM Academy, which I'm sure you know is very competitive. Thousands of people apply for that, and there are only a couple of places. So I think it was recognized that somebody who has a very good eye, just by the choice of the shots she worked on, and she has ambition. She did this CG comp. It's nice. It's simple. but it's the plane is pretty well integrated into the shot. So, you know, she's showing ambition beyond a rotor paint. And that's her. We always do shoots with our students on our courses. So students film each other. Sometimes we bring, you know, actors in or models in. But this is usually filmed by Clement Garini, who is our DOP and the tutor as well. And on this particular shoot, we were testing different types of lighting, and we got some beautiful shots out of them. And I know some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't put yourself on a showreel," and so on. I totally disagree. I think it's great. If you have a beautiful shot like this of yourself, you should definitely put it on a reel. Very good job. She's also demonstrating very good key. And really what the most important thing is retention of hair detail. Again, as I said earlier, this is done through using multiple keys and the additive keyer. So you can see this is a beautifully packaged showreel, nice look to it, and demonstrating good skills, rotor prep, and some compositing skills, and also telling us something about the artist herself, which is always great. Two more to go. So next we have Emma Rouse. She was she also did a 12-week course and then went on to do a master's. So let's have a look. I'll just make it bigger. Put the sound on. Oh, yes, it's interesting. Emma didn't put the sound on her reel. We can talk about that in a minute. Let's see the reel first. Okay, while we are watching, I can say that, you know, from my point of view, it's a shame not to put music on the reel. It doesn't matter that some people want to watch it mute, especially when they are interviewing it, that's fine. But the reels go on social media, on the internet, when you are sending the link to recruiters. Recruiters will watch the reel maybe on their own. You do want it packaged, which means you would want the reel to have music. Also, the choice of music says something about yourself as well. You know, you're not used to watching silent movies anymore. So you do want to give a full experience when completing your showreel. So I would always make an effort. I put quite quirky music on my showreels. On Vimeo, I have a few different showreels that each have different music, and it's usually something unusual. It's up to you. Okay, so let's start from the slate. This is a good slate. Another example of a good slate. It gives all the necessary information. Nuke and Silhouette are listed as the software used. And I know some people use a lot of different software. I know that Emma can use Photoshop and Maya and Mocha maybe and so on. And a lot of students can. But listing a lot of software can be confusing. And if you do want to list a lot of software, because some smaller facilities may look for somebody who has wider skills and so on, that's fine. But I would then advise to have two rails, one that focuses just on compositing and the key software for the larger facilities, because sometimes they get confused. Oh, is it a compositor? Is it a CG artist if you are putting in Maya and so on? Of course, it's beneficial if you know more, but you don't want to confuse people. So in this case, she was right. She She's a prep roto artist. At the moment at One of Us, after completing this reel, she went to Blue Bolt. So because her paint skills are so amazing, and that's really appreciated in a lot of facilities. I already said about music. Personally, I would definitely have music on. And here, great work. We have a rotor shot to start with of a boy jumping. You can see jumping up and down. You can see the breakdown of the shapes and nice hair detail there as well. Of course, if I was doing it, it looks very nice like this as a split screen. But sometimes when one doesn't wipe between different passes full screen, people may assume that something is wrong. So I would always advise to do a full screen wipes, and then you can show it if you want to show it like this as well as a split screen. Well done. She didn't do X-Extend either, so you can see wherever there is motion blur, we can see the edge. We can see here the original background. That's not a problem. That's something, as I said, we saw at the compositing stage. Again, tracker shot, removing the trackers from the face. She's a very meticulous, she was a very meticulous student, and you can see this is executed very well. So 2D cleanup, removing the tracking markers, something, people like to see something that you are likely to be doing on a reel. So great job. Another cleanup, here she removed the safety harness. Obviously this is much more complex because she had to recreate these folds. Again, very well executed. You can see that when you wipe across. So demonstrating very good paint skills. And an extra rotor shot to build her confidence. This is, again, organic and inorganic, although the actual motorcycle is not moving very much, doesn't matter. But he does move his head, and of course she was able to utilize and practice her tracking skills here as well. So it's not just rotor, it's the tracking that is being demonstrated here as well. Nice job. Again, you can see here. So what does this image tell us? It tells us that she's a very organized person. Not just, she hasn't just rotated this biker, but the way she's color-coded the shapes tells you more than just rotor. Tells you, right, she's quite organized. She's probably named those shapes as well. So you do want to have organized people in your teams because it's a lot of teamwork in the industry. So that's something that recruiters will look for. And here she's demonstrating a nice comp replacement, 2.5D projection, again done in New York, a very good replacement. Pretty good range of skills here. Again, King shot, another of our students from another shoot. As I said, on our courses, we do want our students to attend shoots, which we organize. Again, demonstrating a nice ability to get an accurate key and creating the environment to place him in as well. Excellent. So some comping skills of trying to integrate him grading wise and focus wise. And another little simple CG comp, recreating the beauty, placing it into another shot. So fairly straightforward, the last CG comp, that's fine. And she wraps the reel with, again, with slate. That was at the beginning. And that's something we would always advise students to do because because you don't, you know, the recruiter is looking at your reel. You've introduced yourself at the beginning, and at the very end, if he's like the reel, he will go, right, I want to contact this person. And rather, you're just saving recruiter's time by giving him or her your contact details. Very, very good. So they don't need to rewind the tape to look for your details. So we've looked at 4 showreels, and next we'll look at Matteo. But before that, what's clear from those showreels that we've seen so far, those 4, they were targeted to road job prep work because that is the entry role to the industry. So more emphasis was placed on those skills, and that's how it should be. Remember, when you enter the industry, the productions are the productions are complex these days. Working in large facilities with multiple departments requires really delivering and meeting deadlines. You want to be confident in your skills and what you can do. So there is no need to rush into very complex work. Of course, people want to do it. I can see it when in our showreel clinics. And we don't discourage people, that's great, that's fine. But what you want is to be confident and keep your jobs. Once you get your job, you just want to enter the industry because the learning never stops. You will continue learning just like me. I've been in the industry for a very long time and I still look at tutorials and have to keep up. So the senior artist, whatever stage you are, it's, well, as you know, and as you will see, once you enter a facility, you'll have extra training on all sorts of aspects. So you want to enter with being confident with the skills you have. Of course, people help. It's a very friendly industry and people do help each other. So that's why it's important to go step by step and master skills one by one. This is a very fresh reel we are going to look at now. It was completed maybe a week ago. That's an undergraduate student who has just graduated. Of course, the benefit of doing the master's or undergraduate is, you know, that you are involved in group projects as well. So you get the experience of working in a team with different departments. So really emulating the industry. Okay, let's have a look at this reel first, and then we can Okay, so this is really cool. Let's go from the beginning. First of all, the slate. Really nice slate. All the info is there. He's put just Newcon. No, he hasn't, because actually I was teaching short courses until this year or the end of last year. And now I'm teaching undergraduates. So actually, last year I did teach Roto, and I know he, the undergraduate, so I know that he used Silhouette for his Roto, which we'll come to in a minute. That's nice, nice slate because it is designed, he's created a logo, but everything is very clear. That is very important, you know, that your slates are clear and easily readable. You can see here, he lists what he is responsible for in these shots, because this is part of a group project. They created a short film that was led by, you know, obviously this is year 3. I teach year 2, but year 3, Ala Kasik was overseeing this group project from compositing side. But this is a collaboration from CG, with CG students, animation students, storyboarding students, fantastic, fantastic collaboration between different departments, giving these students experience of working on shots from concept to delivery. So he's starting straight away with this sequence of shots which come from this group project, and says clearly what he's done. Very talented student. So done digital mud painting on this shot, rebuilding the CG robot, integrating him in, done the cleanup and so on. So a lot of work, a few different skills demonstrated together. And that's great. Nice breakdown. You can see these are projections created in Nuke. These work that traditionally would have been done in CG, we are able to do in Nuke for the last few years, because and have taken away from CG the need to do these 3D mud paintings themselves. Excellent work, nice integration here. As far as I know, he says responsible for all aspects of shot. He was a director on this shot as well, because the students had the opportunity to direct, produce, they had different roles, split the shots among themselves. And again, the shoot was done by Clement Guerini, who is our DOP, a very good DOP. Very nice work, as you can see. And keying. Okay, so green screen shoot, obviously, that we would have done, showing the cards in 3D, projecting. Obviously, we can see the parallax here, and that's very important. Remember, because I've had a few questions from students recently, from ex-students on positioning of the cards and so on. In order to get the parallax, you just need to position the cards in space like this, in distance them in Z to get the parallax between the foreground, midground, background, and so on. So you're not projecting the background onto one card, you project it onto multiple cards. Different elements are projected, and that's very clearly shown here in his breakdown, as you can see. The sky is on one card, the back mountains on the card a little bit closer to us, then you have mid mountains, then another element. So, and then the floor. So that's the way we would project a plate like this. Of course, they worked under very high pressure because I think they only have 12 weeks to create this. Maybe it's 18 weeks. I'm so sorry. We can check that. Okay, the next shot, right. So last year I covered up and covered the Roto for undergraduates, even though I was teaching short courses. Obviously you can see my influence here, because I must have shown the Tim Adams shot, because They've then filmed the student also getting into the tube with a rucksack because it is challenging to do this, right? I think he directed a shot. So excellent, excellent. We like our students to be involved in producing, not just post-production, visual effects post-production. So great. This student has been used in a lot of in a lot of shots in that year. So excellent job. So he used Silhouette to write to this. Silhouette was designed to for Roto, so it's a good choice. We teach Silhouette for Roto, and now we'll teach it in more detail for Paint as well, because now it's there is a Paint plugin. Silhouette has a Paint plugin. It's a little bit more sophisticated than New Paint, and also because it was designed for Roto, there are a lot of very good tools in Silhouette for Roto, but of course, if you can roto a Nuke, it's not that difficult to pick up Silhouette. So very good job here. He's showing you the overlay on gray as well. Good, you see, following the tutor's recommendations. And what is nice to see is that, you know, many students say, oh, I'm going to rotate this shot and then I'm going to put this background in, but they don't actually do it. But here he's done it. He actually did, you know, projection cleanup on the environment, changed the posters and all sorts of things in this plate, and then dropped him back in. Fantastic, you know, because really, you know, you could take your roto shot and use it in a comp, of course, and not just in a comp, but doing 2D or 3D cleanup, you know, with projections is more impressive. Okay, so that brought us to the end. Again, he ends with a slate. Excellent, very, very good job. So, well, I hope that was useful to you. I'll come back to Zoom.